ESPN.
And welcome into the Rundown. I am Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining me this afternoon here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Appreciate it as always. Got a jam-packed show for you today. I'm going to go ahead and give you the phone number so you can get involved with the show. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call to join us here on the Rundown. And I'll tell you what, the word for today is loyalty. Yes. Remember when we were kids, we watched Sesame Street and they would come out. Today's word is, or today's number is, today's word is loyalty. And when you're a college football coach, you don't have to be loyal. That's basically what it boils down to. But you know what? After you see this college coaching carousel every season, I kind of halfway don't blame them, to be honest with you. I mean, I really don't. But here's what we got today. We had the whole, I think, what was it? It was basically a meeting with Coach Beamer, and he talked about how they were going to implement the Oklahoma offense with stuff that Mike Bobo does, and they were going to, that's the way they were going to work the Gamecock offense this season. I thought, okay, that's great. Now it comes out, what was it, last night? I think it was at profootballscoop.com. Hey, Beamer's going to go somewhere else. Excuse me, not Beamer, but Mike Bobo is going to go somewhere else. And he's taking the new offensive line coach with him. Now, wow. What kind of a shocking thing is that so far? But you know what? It's better to have that now than later on, because I have this mentality when it comes to things. To me, it's, if you don't want to be here, or you think that somewhere else where the grass is going to be greener, then you should just go. I mean, this isn't rocket science, folks. I do think that it's interesting, though, that you can look at it from a couple of different perspectives. Okay? The first, Mike Bobo led the Gamecock offense to what, 10th in the SEC, averaging about 23 points a game. Just saying, that's where they were. All right. What's the line? You are what you are. Well, what you are is the 10th ranked offense in the SEC. Now, you can make an argument that you can throw the COVID stuff on there, and you could throw the quarterback situation on there, and everything else. Okay, and that's fine. But if I'm at Auburn, I'm looking at this move and I'm like, wait a minute, what? What? We're going after a guy, and this is our new offensive coordinator under this new head coach, and he's going to come here and he's going to do this. He's the 10th ranked offense in the SEC. No, I'm not buying that at all. I think that's kind of silly on that front. So it's kind of, on some levels, maybe it's good for the Gamecocks. And you know what? They went with a young coach. Why not go with a young offensive coordinator? This coming year, I mean, let's be honest. I've said the Gamecocks could win 6 games this coming season, and they can. But it's not like this season that anyone's going to think that South Carolina is going to compete for the SEC East. If you're not going to be competing for championship football, and it is a rebuilding year, which it is, why not go with some young guy that is going to come out and be completely different? And I'm not being disrespectful to Coach Mike Bobo. If they had an article that I'll read you a piece of it here about what people think of Mike Bobo in the coaching circles. And all of it, let's just use the term that it's positive. Everybody loves Mike Bobo inside the world of college football. Me personally, being an idiot that has a radio show here, I see Mike Bobo and I think, okay. Good luck, sir. They're going to pay you more money down at Auburn. Have at it. Have at it. I think it's almost addition by subtraction for South Carolina, even though I don't even know who the next offensive coordinator is going to be. Just saying. Was anybody and their brother really impressed with Mike Bobo's offense this season? He kind of left Colorado State and they kind of was like, The offense there wasn't very good either. Just saying. It's kind of maybe addition by subtraction. 803-978-1832. Comments from online. Jonathan says, Mike Bobo sucks anyway. JJ says, Vol fan here. I really like the show, but you guys don't want Will Friend as your O-line coach. You just don't. We had an OL full of high 4 and 5 stars, and it was trash. I don't know about his tenure at Tennessee. I know at the beginning of the season there was talk that Tennessee had the best offensive line in the SEC. I remember reading that from people like Phil Steele. Not saying Phil Steele's always right, but they thought highly of the offensive line there. So I don't know until he actually gets in here and does some stuff, but that's the perspective of a Tennessee Volunteers fan there that had a Will Friend as their offensive line coach. The other part, too, is that Friend and Bobo work together. So you almost have those two. I mean, he came here as a friend of Mike Bobo, and he's leaving as, going with Mike Bobo. I don't know if I like that or not. I like the idea of we're all in this together. We have one boat here. The captain is Shane Beamer. Everybody's got to be on Beamer's boat, and we all got to be going in the same direction. If you're not, then that's not going to work. And I know that sounds like it's easy, but it's not. Getting everybody going in the same direction and not just thinking about themselves is hard. Anyway, your thoughts on that with Will Friend coming and going? Same thing going with Mike Bobo. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. You don't like having this aura around the program under this where it's like, okay, you've got this guy. They just came in. We're going to start building. And right now is a very crucial time. If you don't believe me, the Gamecocks picked up a guy that came in today, a man named David Spalding from Georgia Southern. Now, I know folks are saying, okay, it's a recruit from Georgia Southern. I get that. But the reality is that South Carolina needs some guys. And that's why this time is so important. Okay? So not having your offensive coordinator and your offensive line coach, it's a pretty big deal. But I think it's best for it to happen now. Take your big dose of whatever it is and then go from there. That's the easiest thing to do, in my opinion. Have it now. Have all of it come out now. Get your new offensive coordinator, your new offensive line coach, and then build from there. Tony with a good point. Friend was at UGA with Bobo. Why am I saying Bogo? Bobo under Mark Richt. Yeah. A comment from Justin. I agree. It's time for South Carolina to go after a big-time offensive coordinator. There are guys that are out there. I mean, Gus Malzahn's out there. I know that sounds kind of silly, but why not? Why not shoot for the stars? Chad Morris, the offensive coordinator at Auburn, is still out there. I mean, there are some big-time names that are out there. Go after them. Blake with a good point, and I read some of this too. Beamer was in Starkville to talk to Zach Arnett. We'll see what happens there. Sean says, hopefully rumors are true. Beamer told him to kick rocks after he talked about opening. The opening price was Friend, no longer an O-line coach. I don't know anything about that. I just know that they're both gone. Just saying. But you know what? If South Carolina can come and get someone and have a halfway decent offense this coming season under the new offensive coordinator, you got to pat Shane Beamer on the back. I'm just saying. Especially dealing with all of this right now where they've had 9 players hit the transfer portal. One other thing that's out there too, fullback Adam Prentice mentioned a couple weeks ago, hey, he's not coming back. What about Colin Hill? You think Colin Hill's going to stay here without Mike Bobo? I don't know. And people seem to forget Ryan Helinski entered the transfer portal. Maybe he comes back. I don't know. If the adage was, hey, Bobo's going to be here, I'm not going to have a chance to do it, I'd feel a lot better about that Gamecock quarterback room if Ryan Helinski were there and they were doing an actual open competition where you had Helinski and Luke Doty going after it together. Because I know that people talk about, oh, well, and you heard the stuff that Bobo said, he's got to get better, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think he got the completely fair shake, in my opinion. Now, I don't go to practice. I'm just from the stuff that I read and the stuff that I see. Wouldn't it be great to, we do know that Helinski can play. He threw for 300-plus yards against Alabama. To do that, you got to be pretty good. Just saying. Not that far-fetched. I did mention the defensive back that is coming from Georgia Southern. This guy redshirted his first year of a 3-star prospect out of high school. Had one Power 5 offer. That was just with Duke. But this season, he had like, I think it was 17 tackles. For my notes, I don't have my notes in front of me. 17 tackles. I know he had a pick 6 against Appalachian State. Yeah. So there you go with that. That's what's coming in. I think you need some of those guys. Some guys that are hungry like that, he put out on Twitter, hey, I'm making the move up and want to play in the SEC. That makes a lot of sense to me. So addition by subtraction, in my opinion, with Mike Bobo going. The only thing that may be a problem is his relationship with Gunnar Stockton, the 5-star quarterback that's in next year's class. Now, I've heard people say, hey, he's got a great relationship with Connor Shaw. That's fine. But is he going to move somewhere else? We'll see on that. 803-978-1832. Would love to get your comments on Mike Bobo leaving. And once again, these are all my opinions, man. I could be completely wrong. The stuff that I was telling you earlier about Bobo is everybody and their brother loves Mike Bobo. I read something earlier today. You think about the guys that he's gotten to play for him. So what I mean by that is some of the guys he's gotten to play for him include Matt Stafford, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, all of these guys. All of these guys are great players. Now, a lot of them are at Georgia. Just saying. He's had the ability to be a good recruiter and pick up some top flight guys. But we'll see how that works out for South Carolina. Will they be able to keep the young man Gunnar Stockton coming in to the program? So I was reading this earlier today. Some of the guys that he's had come in include Aaron Murray, Trenton Thompson, Terry Godwin, Isaiah McKenzie, and, of course, Gunnar Stockton. When you see that, you kind of think, man, this is going to be good for Auburn. But I wonder if it came down to money, too. And we'll get the contract stuff when it comes out. Yeah, we'll get all of that. But if it comes out where some of the numbers that I've seen on Twitter where it's like, hey, they're going to pay him $2 million at Auburn, I don't really fault Mike Bobo too much for that. Wait a minute, you're going to give me $800,000 more than what I'm making right now to come coach at Auburn? All right, I'll do it. Out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown.
Hey, I think these coaching moves make Shane Beamer look weaker than I thought he was.
Why is that?
I thought that him keeping Bobo was the athletic director saying, you have to keep Mike Bobo, and him giving into it because he wanted to be the head coach of South Carolina.
Well, but how does that make him look weaker if they go away, though? I mean, he's going to have to be able to go get the guy he wants now, you would think, right?
But I don't know if he has a collateral to go get the guy he really wants. I mean, you know what I mean?
I understand.
An assistant.
Yeah, I get what you're.
Coach is going to say, I'm going to go work for this kid that I know more than he does.
Yeah, but that's a mentality you've got to have. I don't know what the term I got to use here. He's going to have to go through his coaching tree, and he's coached everywhere, so people know him. But let's think of it from this perspective. You have the opportunity to be an offensive coordinator at an SEC school. That's a heck of a token that he can dangle out there.
Yeah, but look who they got to coach.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to be able to bring in, somebody that can work magic.
Well,
I think Luke Doty.
With Doty,
that's all they got in the quarterback room now is Luke Doty. That's it.
Yeah, but the other thing too that you got to think about is that the money end of it. If they're paying Bobo $2 million, they're only paying Beamer $2.45 million, something like that. So at Auburn, they want to put that much into their offense compared to just the head coaching spot at South Carolina. So maybe money comes into it too.
And with these transfers we're seeing, these are kids that didn't have big Power 5 offers. I mean, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, I think.
I think that
it would seem like they would just say this year is not good and then go all in next year, like Dabo did his first year at Clemson. He had 12 guys,
right?
And his first class, and said, I'm not going to throw those scholarships away.
Yeah,
that's it. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, man, appreciate you. Thanks a lot, man. I get that. He's got 8 guys in his recruiting class, so it's not like things were going completely up the roof there. Yeah. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense in my opinion. I do get the idea of, hey, this guy's a kid. And, not that I'm mocking Coach Beamer for his age, but look at it from this perspective. Lincoln Riley's not very old at Oklahoma, and he's managed to get some folks. I don't know. I think he needs to go and use what you've got. The whole idea that you're an SEC offensive coordinator, and why not go and talk with your dad? I know that sounds silly, but here's Frank Beamer's got a lot of friends out there, and maybe Frank Beamer can help lure somebody to come and help the Gamecock program. But right now, I don't think it looks good. But I'm looking at it from a perspective of it's better to have it now than later on. Let's say Bobo stays for 1 year and then goes somewhere else. It could end up being a problem down the line. David online says they can hire Tom Herman. Stop it, David. Gamecock fans don't like Tom Herman. Stop it. Blake with a comment. Follow the Mississippi State model. Go after them young. If you lose them, great. They got better. Great. They get better job. Manny Diaz, etc. Out to the phones we go. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rob. It's Ray. How are you doing?
What's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
Hey, doing good. Just kind of want to chime in on this. I guess this Bobo thing.
Yeah, Bobo's gone,
I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know. This is just my thought on this. I'm thinking that Bobo, I know he had the relationship with Beamer and everything, but I'm thinking primarily the reason he was kept was because we would have had to pay him $1.2 million if we had, let him go. And, he was a decent coach.
Right.
But I'm thinking, I could be totally wrong. I'm thinking that he wasn't Beamer's first choice, but it was kind of, one of those things when he was hired, but you're going to have to kind of keep this guy because of finances or whatever. So I'm thinking, in a way, it's a good thing for us, being a Gamecock fan. I mean, Bobo, clearly didn't really want to be there, and plus, I guess they offered him $800,000 more a year, and you couldn't turn that down. So I'm kind of excited because I really wanted somebody new anyway. I think the way the last coaching staff ended and everything, I just think there's a time when you need a totally clean house, and I think this was a time we needed to clean house. But those are just kind of my thoughts on it, Rob.
All right, man. Hey, I appreciate you joining us on the show, bud. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, I don't think I can use the term that I want to use, but let's just say young man that spits fire. That's what I want as an offensive coordinator. Why not? Why not have a guy that wants to be what Shane Beamer is? Hey, I want to come to South Carolina. I want to be here. That makes a lot of sense to me. And you know what? Half the team's gone anyway. I mean, let's be honest. 9 guys transferring out. Not what you want anyway. So The idea of building relationships with guys that are down there now, you don't have that. You just don't have that. You're going to have a completely new team where you're going to have to do the old tent pole theory. What I mean by that is you put your tent poles up first. This is going to be the tent pole team for Shane Beamer. Get them guys spread out where you can have a nice sturdy foundation and then build your way up. But I want the young person that can spit fire. That's what I want. If I am a Gamecock fan, it would just make the most sense to go about it that way and then go from there. So Bobo staying, and I said it on the show, it's like, all right. But in the end, God bless you, sir. Enjoy your time down on the plains. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you on the rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. All right, Real Talk Georgia fans over there. I see SEC Dog, our noted Georgia apologist. Does Bobo suck or not? With my time dealing with him here at South Carolina, he was okay. But I don't know if he's something to write home about. Gus Malzahn is an offensive coordinator. That's funny. What about Chad Morris? Just saying. He's looking for a job, I'm sure. You guys are hilarious out there with all that, though, man. It's crazy. All right, well, you guys are free to call in, too, at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call. Want to join us here on the rundown? I've always been on that side, too, of just clean house. Get everybody gone. Kellen Moore. David's over there with jokes today. You're funny, David. You think Chad Morris is a program destroyer? SEC Dog is okay with good talent. He's not terrible, but not great. He's middle of the road. I think that's fair. That's fair. We'll pin that comment. If SEC Dog wasn't such an apologist, he'd be a great contributor to the show. I'm serious. Savage. Hilariously funny. Hilarious. Pelini's terrible. And welcome back into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. You know, we were talking during the break, and of course, you can find the show on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good. You can watch it there. You can watch it on Facebook. You can watch it on the YouTube channel at Carolina Jackpot. All right, so here's the other interesting thing. I mentioned Chad Morris, and I'm thinking, you know what? Chad Morris has been pretty successful. Then you look at Chad Morris at Auburn this year as the offensive coordinator. They averaged 25 points a game compared to 23.5 for South Carolina. Maybe that's not the best idea in the world. Maybe that's why my chunky butt gets to sit here and just run my mouth about football and be a fan like you, just watching things as they come in. Couple of comments. SEC Dog says, Bobo's okay with good talent. Not terrible, but not great either. Also, Bobo running the same offense in 2020 as he did in 2007. He did install the slant pass in the playbook this year, though. obviously that's some joking stuff there. But one of the things that I remember from this year was, what was it? The 3-step drop in the power I, basically, is what they were running sometimes for South Carolina. I love the people, too, that were talking about, oh, we're going to go to this old school type offense where we're going to have a fullback and we're going to run the ball and we're going to do all kinds of stuff like that. And it's just going to be weird. I mean, nobody's going to be ready for it because everybody's so used to seeing the spread and everything else like that. Yeah. You know who thought like that for a long time? And what I mean by that is that, hey, you can run this old school type of offense. That would be Nick Saban and guys like that. But you know what they did? They evolved. They realized that you're not going to be able to do that kind of offense and be successful. Alabama's in the national championship game, not because of their defense. They're there because of their offense. 6 players on the offensive side of the ball were AP all AP first team All-Americans. I think that's the way to put it out there. Compared to 1 on the defensive side of the ball. If you told Alabama fans that like 10 years ago, they'd have laughed at you. No, we've got, guys that can do some stuff, but in reality, okay, we're built on defense. You have to evolve as a program goes. And I agree with what SEC Dog said there. Yeah, there's not much evolving when it comes to Mike Bobo. All right, out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown.
Hey, Rob, how's it going, man? Quick comment, and then
Sure.
I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, buddy.
We talking about the Gamecocks losing Mike Bobo.
Yeah.
We want to build a young crew. First name that comes to my mind really is Willie Corn and what he's done over at Carolina at Chanticleers. What you think? I'll hang up and listen.
All right, buddy. Hey, you know what? I like what Willie Corn did down there. I don't know how much of that you mentioned an innovative offense. Yeah. You mentioned an offense that they have a great running back there, which South Carolina has too. But that offense that they run at Coastal is just really unique and different. Why not bring that up here? That makes a lot of sense to me. Will they make that call? I don't know. What the caller said earlier today, though, about Shane Beamer looking weak and having someone that, if they're an established offensive coordinator wanting to go and work for a, quote, kid, I didn't say that, the caller did. I think Beamer's about the same age as Willie Corn, maybe a little bit older. If you have the opportunity to move from a Sun Belt program to an SEC program that's not named Vanderbilt, yeah, you make that jump. So Willie Corn should be a guy that you could go after. He's already in the state. He kind of knows the recruiting areas. Why not? Why not? Having to, you think a lot of teams, with that Coastal Carolina offense, what they did, man, they were very successful. Now, can you get that offense and make it work in the SEC? Hey, that's something that we don't know. But it's kind of exciting. But aren't you tired, though, when you watch South Carolina and it's just boring as far as the offense goes? McClendon, when he was there, he had the whole thing of people seem to forget. What was it? The last time that they played up at Death Valley against Clemson, they put, 35 points on the board? Yeah. Now, of course, they had some great wide receivers and all that, and I get that. But the reality is that that offense was interesting. I mean, you were able to throw the ball around a little bit and do some things. But Willie Corn, that's the name that's out there. What do you think about that? 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. I know David's down in Louisiana. He goes, unless you're Billy Napier. So Blake says Beamer is so old. He coached under Sylvester Croom back in the 90s. Yeah, Shane Beamer's 38. So just throwing that out there. Anyway, would love to take your calls this afternoon on that transition. We're going to talk a little bit when we come back about Clemson and what they have to look forward to next year. I know that sounds kind of vague, but right now they're doing all these exit interviews and guys coming and going and everything else. Just some of my thoughts on what Clemson will have next year, what's going to work, and how they've got to overcome another hump now. And I know people are like, wait a minute, they've lost 2 games in a calendar year, Rob. What are you talking about? They both were CFP games. Go back and watch those games. It tells you something about Clemson. So we'll talk about that when we come back. Of course, you can always join us in the chat room over here. Lots of great stuff. Kirk says, this is why we need to fire Ray Tanner. Not a lot of love for Coach Tanner today over there. Blake says, did you see the South Carolina offense versus Ole Miss? That's who South Carolina needs to be. Yeah. But Lane Kiffin has this great offensive mind, man. And there's things that come with Lane Kiffin too. So we'll see how that works out in the end. Remember, he's a 2-time failure at other programs. So, yeah, their offense looked good, but their defense was trash. Got to have that balance of both. Just saying. Was anybody really intimidated by Ole Miss? Not really. You know, you can go out there and put up 35 against them. More of the rundown when we come back. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Nobody's going to block you for having an opinion, Marcus, as long as you don't throw out any craziness. So stop with that nonsense. You can have an opinion here. I don't have to like it, but you know, as long as you're not tearing people down, it shouldn't matter. Boy, that's a bold statement there, Blake. I like that. Well, welcome back to the rundown. I am Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining me here today. We talked about South Carolina. We'll take your calls on Mike Bobo and Will Friend leaving the program. I'm on the boat of it's addition by subtraction. Why not? Why not go and get you some guys that can spit fire? That's the way that it should be, in my opinion. Let's talk a little bit about Clemson. And as they've wrapped up their season by getting popped, I mean, absolutely popped in the college football playoff semifinals. You know, I almost, when I look back at that, it was almost like Groundhog Day. What do I mean by that? You remember the movie with Bill Murray and everything was the exact same over and over again. The last 2 trips to the college football playoffs were pretty much the same way. Clemson goes in against a team that has a good quarterback, and Clemson gets lit up like a Christmas tree. Now, you can look at it from that perspective on the outside and just see that and go with it. But if you really watch the games, what was the big difference between the last 2 college football playoff teams for Clemson and the team that won the national title against Alabama? I'll tell you what it is. Clemson had that defensive line that was outstanding, and they were able to battle in the trenches and win games that way. Tua Tagovailoa, Jerry Jeudy, all those guys, Clemson had a better defense, and they were able to knock those guys out that are making big plays now in the NFL. Think about it. Tagovailoa, the Heisman winner, Devontae Smith was on that team. You had a ton of guys on that team that were great on the offensive side of the ball. But Clemson had that massive defensive line, in addition to, let's not forget, A.J. Terrell, who is probably going to be, he's considered one of the best rookie corners in the NFL right now. You lose that on the back end of that defense. Tanner Muse, who annoyed me when he played, but he was a pretty good player, good enough to get drafted by the Oakland Raiders. That was the big difference, was the fact that Clemson had a bunch of dogs. And that's the only term that I can use, man, because they would eat you up at the line, and you're not going to throw on guys. You look at Terrell in the national championship game. Tungaviola was completely fooled, thought he could throw over there and get away with it, and he made him pay with a pick six. So, once again, it's Groundhog Day. It's the same thing with this year's team. They had arguably the best quarterback in the country. Now, I know people are going to say, well, Mac Jones is this, and they're going to say you could even go with Kyle Trask, whatever. Let's say one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country, good enough to go to the Heisman Trophy virtual ceremony. Okay? They had that. They had what many people thought coming into the season was the best all-purpose running back in the country in Travis Etienne. Yet when they get to the college football playoffs, if you can't line up and play some sort of defense, it's not going to matter. Not going to matter at all. If you rewatch that game with Ohio State, you got to tip your hat to Ohio State because they figured out Clemson's sweet at the safety spot. Oh, yes, they are. That's why they kept running the same post route and got burnt. I mean, Toast City, ladies and gentlemen. So for Clemson to be better next year, they got to figure that out. It all comes back, in my opinion, to the defense. And I'm not throwing shade at Coach Venables. I think Coach Venables is great. But you got to have those players up front. You don't have Christian Wilkins. You don't have Cleveland Farrell. You don't have Austin Bryant. You don't have those guys that can get in there and wreak havoc. Now, on the other front, Brian Brzee, Trenton Simpson, Miles Murphy, those are guys that have the capability of being that defense for next year. They were just freshmen this year. And not making excuses, but this is the same way across the country. Next year's season, hopefully the vaccine will be in play and we can actually have a really full college football season. But this season was completely different. Avoiding the COVID was a big part of everything. They may have more instructional time, more time to lift, whatever. You can argue that the jump from freshman to sophomore could be big for a lot of these guys. So, but when you look at Clemson, though, I think that Skalski, with him coming back, and Nolan Turner coming back at safety, Clemson had issues at safety. I get that. But Skalski coming back, if he's able to stay healthy, that could be something that could help the Tigers on the defensive side of the ball. Another thing to look at, too, though, and people seem to, I don't know if I'm sure people are kind of thinking this, too. What if Justin Ross decides to come back? I don't know if he's coming back or not. No clue. He's dealt with the neck injury. Coach Sweeney said, he's going to be able to play at some point, is what the exact line was. I got to make sure I've got it here. But anyway, you have that end of it too. One area that Coach Sweeney is going to have to make a change, though, in my opinion, is that he's going to have to accept some transfers. Apparently, Eric Gilbert, the star-studded tight end from LSU, expressed interest in Clemson, according to a report. Now, it may have been this whole thing where he's just floating things out there to see if anybody wants to, come to him, etc. We do know that he's entered the transfer portal. If he decides, hey, I want to go to Clemson, Coach Dabo Sweeney should evaluate that and go with it. It's kind of a sign of the times type thing. You've got these guys that are going to be there, and there's going to be a lot of talent in that portal. Why not go after them? They talk about being a program up at Clemson and being a family and everything else. Take some guys and make them part of the family that want to try to come into it, even though they were somewhere else. Eric Gilbert would be a great addition to the Clemson program. A great addition to the program. DJ Online says, what Bobo did today, you lost some respect for him. Look, if he got $800,000 more, which is what some of the lines that are out there to go coach somewhere else, yeah, I mean, loyalty doesn't happen in the college coaching world. We're learning that. But if you get paid, what was it, like 70, 60% more than what you're getting paid now, that's tough, man. So, yeah, you have to deal with that too. All right, so we'll take your calls on this afternoon at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. David says North Carolina is going to win the ACC next year. Would anybody be surprised? Just saying. SEC Dog says Sweeney will be accepting a 2-game losing streak after week 1. Very confident Georgia fans when their coach can't determine that their third-string quarterback should be first string. You have coaching issues at Georgia, sir. Don't come at me with that nonsense. Killing me with all that. We'll take your calls, though. 803-978-1832. J-Rock says if Clemson doesn't want Gilbert, Carolina will take him. Okay. Trust me, wherever Gilbert wants to go, I mean, you know, he'll have that opportunity. You could see when he's on the field, he is a man-child out there making some big plays. LSU fans were trying to tell me that they thought he was going to be better than Kyle Pitts, which I was not buying at all. Just saying. But we shall see. That's going to be one of the more interesting names in the transfer portal. And by the way, the transfer portal can really help your program. If you look at Miami this year, they ended up with De'Aaron King. They went from not scoring a point against Louisiana Tech to having a pretty good offense behind the young man that transferred in from Houston. So you can get some talent out there. It's just a question of whether or not you're going to have to break away. And we used the word evolve earlier with Coach Saban. Coach Sweeney's going to have to evolve to that too. Yes, with the pandemic, things have changed. I am going to have to accept some players on transfer. There's a lot of talent out there, and not going to get it is not very good. Kirby finally figured out JT is better than a 5-foot midget. Thank you, sir. I didn't say that. Someone in the chat room did, but I did repeat it out there on the air here. I meant no disrespect to the little people. I don't want them coming and yelling at me and sending me hate tweets at Rob Sounds Good, which you, by the way, can do that as well. I interact through Twitter on the afternoons and in the evening too. I do a lot of late night Twitter, by the way, just retweeting silly stuff. All right, so we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you here on the Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yo, you gotta admit though, that doesn't make Kirby Smart look really that good at all. I mean, the Juwan Mathis was a great story and all that. I get that, but wow. I think I said that on the show the other day, man. If they had him for the Alabama game, I'm not saying they win it. I'm just saying it wouldn't look the way that game looked. Oof. Terrible. Terrible. You know, that's going to be an interesting matchup the first week of the season. So you talk about the hype for that game with Georgia and Clemson. Man, stoke the fires on that one, man. I agree with J-Rock on that, man. Get out there, man. If you don't want to be here, don't be here. It's a poison. I don't know if they're going to have the Carolina-Auburn game this year, man. I think it's going to be different. I think that they're going to move that. I honestly think the schedule is going to be a little bit different since they just played Auburn. I don't think it's going to be that way. We'll see. I got to educate myself on that. So, yeah, that could be good. Is that the first week of the season there, Milton? I don't know about that, brother. That's a good point there, DJ. And welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Appreciate you folks watching online and, of course, listening out over the airwaves. Podcast is up this afternoon at 5 o'clock. I love the people that if I'm a dummy and I forget to post the podcast, they're like, "Where's the podcast, idiot?" One guy actually sent me that in a direct message on Twitter. "Where's the podcast, idiot?" Well, thank you. As your humble idiot, I will make sure that I have the podcast up by 5 o'clock this afternoon. So there's that. By the way, kind of a throwback to yesterday's show. We were talking about how Sam Howell doesn't eat anything but chicken fingers, which I think is absolutely insane. North Carolina does a victory dinner on Sundays. If they can win the game, they have lobster tails, steak, etc. But he has his chicken fingers. That's what he wants to eat. Congratulations on being a large child. Now, I mentioned something about barbecue that was made from kumquats yesterday and how Lawton Swan probably ate it. I have to go back on that. So I have to do my best Michael Jackson moonwalk thing on that. It's not kumquats. It's actually called jackfruit. Not a joke. It's called jackfruit. Apparently, you can barbecue up jackfruit, and it'll supposedly have the same texture as barbecue, even though it's not really barbecue. By the way, if you invite me to a cookout at your house and you make jackfruit and you're trying to tell everyone, "Hey, this is barbecue," I'm not coming back to your house. And I'm not inviting you to my house for our barbecues where we actually have barbecue. So let's just throw that out there. You respond to that on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. I'm going to tweet out a picture later of what this stuff looks like. I mean, it is all these and once again, I'm a person that I need to start trying to watch what I eat, and we all try to do that. I get it. And they're talking about, "Oh man, it's so healthy for you, this jackfruit is." Yeah, I'm not buying it. I will eat chicken and stuff like that. I'm not going to be a complete chicken guy like Sam Howell, but for my protein, I don't want jackfruit. Don't get it, man. And by the way, when you see that stuff, I'll send you a picture of that out there too on Twitter. It's massively huge. A couple of other notes before we get out of here. Jake Bentley has found his new home. He is going to transfer to South Alabama. Yes, he's moving to the South Alabama program for what is hopefully, and I say hopefully because, man, it seems like this guy's been around forever. But it should be his final season of college football this year. Of course, he left South Carolina, and I thought he was an average SEC quarterback here. Went to Utah. I watched some of the games with the Utes, and he looked pretty good out there. But I guess things change, and now he's going to finish up his career at South Alabama playing for the Jaguars. So good luck to Bentley on that front. We'll see how that works out for him. Also for Clemson, Jackson Carman, the big offensive tackle, has decided to enter the NFL draft. I think he has the potential to be a first or a second round pick, depending on how well he does at the combine. What a big individual he is. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out for him. All right, we'll take calls at 803-978-1832. I did see a story today that was interesting, and it was written by someone that talked about Deshaun Watson there's talk out there that he may be demanding a trade from Houston. Now, let's put this into perspective for a moment. He just signed a massive contract. So you can demand things all that you want, but the reality is we have you under contract, sir, and if you're going to play football, you got to play here. Now, they may be able to work something behind the scenes with lawyer folks and agent folks and everything else, but the reality is that Deshaun Watson is going to be a quarterback this season, probably for the Houston Texans. But let's step into a vacuum for a moment and say, all right, what would it take for a team like, I don't know, the Carolina Panthers, which there's a large contingent of Carolina Panthers fans in our audience here, to get Deshaun Watson? Now, we can do a whole show and talk about how great Deshaun Watson is. I think he led the NFL in passing yards this season, 33 touchdowns, a Houston record, on and 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 on. So here's the thing with that, though. You can be great and all that, but they still won, 4 games? So, yeah. Here's the other thing that's interesting on that. The Houston Texans don't have a first or second round draft pick because of Deshaun Watson. And you're like, wait a minute, Rob, why is that? Because they traded those picks away to get Laramie Tunsil, the guy to protect Deshaun Watson at tackle. Yeah, former Ole Miss guy. That's why they don't have the first and second round picks. So they're not going to be able to get any playmakers in the draft or any of the supposed top playmakers you can get in the first or second round. So with that, now you've got issues. You're not going to be able to influx any talent in there for Houston, and they're staring down the barrel of another 4-12 season, 5-11, whatever it is you want to call it, unless they, as far as getting young guys in there, which is how a lot of this stuff is built. Yeah, they're not going to have it at Houston. But for the Carolina Panthers, here's the thing. What would they have to give up? I mean, they've already committed to Teddy Bridgewater for 2 seasons? But they would probably have to give up some picks later on. And then maybe a couple of their young players that they've got right now. I don't know. But the idea of him going to the Panthers, even though this article is very well written, is kind of far-fetched in my opinion. Milton says the Panthers need the QB to build around. Teddy just can't be that person. Hate to say it. You know what, though? In the NFL, I do think you need a quarterback to build around, but wow. The Panthers, under Matt Rule, I think they're losing their offensive coordinator. There's all kind of stuff that's going from here to there and everywhere else, okay? But they're going to get a new general manager, too. So they're going to have a perspective of where they're going. Right now, they're just kind of floating. Yeah, we're a franchise in Charlotte. We got Christian McCaffrey, who's only going to have, maybe 2 more years of being Christian McCaffrey, even though we're roped into 4 more years of him. Yeah, there's that too. So the Panthers are an interesting offseason case, by the way. So we'll see how that works there. As we head into Wild Card Weekend, tomorrow on the show, we're going to have our handicap expert, Tyler Crowder, on to join us to talk about some of the wild card games. And we'll look ahead to the national championship game. There was one other cool story. My last one before I get out of here. Nick Saban's daughter deletes her Twitter account after posting an Ohio State conspiracy theory. Isn't it sad that Nick Saban's daughter can't go on Twitter and just say whatever in the world it is that she wants to say? Oh, never mind. Twitter, Facebook, everybody else they're just deleting people by the nanosecond. It's not going to be social anymore. We're going to have to go back to the old social media where you stand in your driveway and just start yelling. Put up yard signs. Anyway, she put out a tweet and it didn't work out too well for her. Now she had to delete her program or delete her Twitter account. Said, if you're not confident to play, then say it. I call BS on the COVID cases. They're just worried about their quarterback and want him to have more time to heal. If he's hurt, put in your backup. You didn't see us postpone the rest of the season to wait for Waddle. Bye. That gets you where people were so upset she can't even have her opinion, and she has to delete her Twitter account. There are other people who've deleted their Twitter account, former linebackers that used to work here. When they got exposed, they had to delete their Twitter account, but they came back. Here's a shout out to Kristen Saban-Settis. Come back to Twitter. Don't let Ohio State fans and haters of what Alabama's done have you off of Twitter. Be stronger than that. Just saying. All right, Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports. My name is Rob Sanders. I appreciate you guys checking out the program today. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Podcast up at 5 o'clock. Lawton Swan, the king of the jackfruit barbecue, is next. This is the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, I appreciate you guys, man. If you could like the show over there, that's awesome. Give it the old thumbs up there. Help out Jackpot with the YouTube channel. That would be great. And I like you guys spending some time with me. We get to talk some sports. So thank you guys a lot. I know that a lot of you are fans of Jackpot's channel, who's an absolutely cool talent to have on broadcasting as far as his content goes. It's cool that I get to check some of that out. So you guys are awesome. Give it the old thumbs up, man. And we will see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock